even the A3 one in process. Right. All right. 1 o'clock. I'll welcome everybody to the Golden Bay Community Board April meeting. I'm just going to pass over to Councillor Hill for our character. Thank you.
Kia ora everybody. Ngā mai hoki mai tonu. Kara ki tātou. Whakataka hau ki tuanga kia mai kina ki utia kia mai taratara ki tai. Hi ake ana te atukura ki tio ki karina hulu. Tihei Mariora. Cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south. Let the breeze blow over the land, let the breeze blow over the sea. Let the red tip dawn come with a sharpened air, a touch of frost, and the promise of a glorious day. Let there be life. The purpose of which is to bring our focus here together to begin what we're here to be with.
Thank you. And I would also like to extend a welcome to Janine. Welcome back, Janine. Really nice to meet you. And welcome to Matt from the Building Assurance team and to Robert and Mike from our roading engineering team. So thank you for coming over to join us.
We have
Oh, they're here already. Sorry, Tanya, I didn't realise you weren't already.
we also have
Apologies. All right. So Tanya and Stephanie
are in the meeting.
are in the meeting now. Okay, welcome. Sorry, I wasn't aware that here as well. Okay. Do we have? Thank you. Oh, close will be lovely. Thank you. So, do we have any apologies or leave of evidence today? Lovely. Sorry about that. So we'll just move into public forum. So we have 30 minutes for public forum, with each speaker allocated 5 minutes each. Speakers must be respectful, avoid repetition and criticism of elected members and staff, and avoid speaking on measures legal, subject to legal proceedings. So our first person that we have registered to speak today is Dave Hicks. Welcome, Dave.
Okay, thanks. First of all, I'd just like to introduce myself. Obviously, David Hicks with White Tanya, and I bought the RS4 November 19. So we've just come through our 4th summer. And to be fair with the way things are going, it's been the best summer we've had so far. And we're just sort of feeling, we're starting to feel positive and comfortable with the way everything's rocked the board. And then we get it out of the stock. So thanks everyone for providing me with this platform for express concerns with the shared path proposal. This pathway, we think, will have significant adverse effect on our business and the businesses around us and the ability of the community to access our business safely. We also had concerns for the cyclists using the pathway being so close to the store loading area and activities which are engaged around the store. We can have up to 7, sometimes 8 trucks a day at the height of summer come to the store and unload it. And they can be parked unloading there for an hour. So it does get quite busy around, especially at Christmas time. The store is a critical little heart of the Ohara community, a focal point in business that requires council support, not discouragement. It's a bit of consultation. We're concerned that we being business owners and residents were not consulted properly or effectively. But finding out by chance through council officers being in the car park was how we found out right from the start before we knew what was going on. That was a big surprise to us. I do believe engagement with business owners and residents could have been a better way to seek greater consultation going forward, engagement with our concerns being listened to. Like that, with our store, it's part of the community. We engage with our community as a store as well with sponsorships and and helping out with people coming in with their hand out, we're really keen to look after the people that come into our store where we can. That's how we're wired. We employ 10 locals, including my wife and myself. We provide essential goods to the community, focused to Behara. We are passionate and local to Behara. We also help out we also help out with other non-profit organisations, and the negative impact to take the ability for us to continue to help the community to take that away. This part will take away parking for the locals who want to access the beach through the reserve at the end of the camp. This is going to be congestion everywhere the way we see it, but the community wellbeing needs to be inclusive. Cycleways, shared pathways, and are great and positive, but I use them myself. My wife is a very keen cycler. I'm a cycler, and we hire cycles. A cycleway that is unsafe just dissects our business from the car parking and compromises our loading, and our loading is not great. Community wellbeing should include ensuring our business can survive and grow. The positioning of the cycleway will make the access to the store difficult and tricky. This will lead, we know, to customers finding it too tricky or too inconvenient to stop at the store. We strongly believe that the council need to look at the wider picture. The cycleway is not just a cycleway design and its consequence of the overall viability of the community. We believe that there must be safer options than the route set for discussion today. Will you please, council, pause and re-look at the design, accommodate the design through the campground or at the other side of the road. I'm sure if council are seeking to advance this route at pace due to funding constraints, but a safer route with less impact will be safer for council and safer for the community. Please pause and reconsider other options. And thanks again for letting me come up to get the same.
Thanks, Dave. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Jean Cooper. Hi, Jean.
Yeah, sorry. I think for those that haven't met by Jane, I purchased the campground in September. So we took that over, but the last 10 years ago, I suppose I was here as just the other side of the thing. So have a fairly broad and good knowledge of the whole way this works. So I think for us, and it's just picking up on Dave's point, consultation, absolutely no consultation on the affected party. And we need to have a better consultation. I think I've been quoted as being against the cycleway, and that couldn't be further from the truth at the present time. Simply haven't had enough consultation, haven't been involved in it. The key issue for us, you take away 100 parks. Those 100 parks are certainly needed come peak season. So, and I think you're the gentleman that came out that's measuring up. I think I did pose a question to you. How are you going to solve that problem? So the displacement of 100 parks is a big issue for Behara. Whether we like it or not, our guests and there's a lot of them that come during the year. It's only ever a problem 3 weeks of the year. They need parking. They bring thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this community. And we pretty much saying to them, we have got a solution for you. So if you're going to displace the parks, tell us what your solution is. And that's been my big issue, is I just want a solution for the parks. And I think there are some really good solutions, but you haven't had the conversations, which is pretty disappointing, right? So my position is I'm not for or against it, but I definitely say there has to be some conversations going on. Right at the moment, the latest drawing that we got, which was about a week ago, that cuts across my list. So that's a big, you ain't doing that until we have a different conversation. And it only has to be a conversation. So I'm just imploring council staff, go back and start again and figure out what consultation actually means to people. And let's have a talk about how we can find that solution with that number of parks. Now, whether it's 80, whether it's 120, whether it's a different number, it doesn't matter. Because my biggest fear is, and obviously having a really good knowledge of that campground all the way back to 1997 to be precise. The problem that you've got, if you take away those car parks, people will just go and find other places to park. You are pushing the problem up the side streets and prospective driveways. And whether we like it or not, people are going to do that. And the community of Tahara will be up in arms again. And we're literally just shifting the problem. And I go, you know, come on guys, let's have a conversation about how we don't shift that problem. Let's find a way of dealing with that issue. So that's all I want to say. You know, again, consultation is not, it needs to be actually required as far as I'm aware of. Have that conversation. I think Robert, the discussion that I had out the park was, you're not worried about that problem, you deal with it when it comes to it. It's too late to deal with it after you've created it, after you've shifted it. So let's get back to actually have a conversation at the start. And I think you might be surprised about how we come up with that, because right at the moment you have the right of passage through the site, through the campground. It's in my lease, it's part of the we to let cyclists and we have to put traffic through here. There are other options without taking away our parks. But anyway, I'm invited just to come and have a conversation. The council has been emailed on this issue last week. I'm still waiting for a reply. It's 4 or 5 days later. It's been across Tim's desk. We're not getting responses on that, Jane. I think was past the buck, but so we're needing, I think. So unfortunately, until we have those conversations, I'm just saying this is the right way to go. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Chair. Now via Zoom, we have Rebecca Parrish.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Just one moment. I'm just getting the volume sorted.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Community Board. My name is Rebecca Parrish. I work in the property team at Foodstuffs. On the Spot, Pahara is one of our On the Spot is one of our brands, and we support Pahara on the Spot, and that's why I'm here today in that capacity. On the Spot as a store is all about being local and all about being convenient to the community. We have reviewed the shared pathway plan that was put forward by council, and we are really concerned that what is being asked for today in terms of council officer support to approve the shared path plan past the Pahara store will result in safety issues. We are really uncomfortable that the proposed cycle route has been identified in front of the store. The design will compromise the safety of the pathway users and also of the vehicle customers entering the site. Store patrons will need to navigate across the shared path, and you may debate that that's not unusual. Cycle paths are located on road networks, and navigation tools are always needed for both users of the road network and cycle paths. But this is quite an unusual situation where you're bringing cyclists and those, not just cyclists, but those multimodal community members that are using the pathway right into an area that is already, I can't think of a more sort of a more professional word to use, but cluttered. It is a really cluttered area. It is a high use area where you've got patrons leaving the camping ground and entering the camping ground. You've got patrons of the store that are dining, that are moving through from the store, but both back and forth. You've got people congregating in that area. And on top of that, you've got a loading zone right adjacent to the cycle path that has heavy vehicles using that loading zone up to an hour at each time in terms of if it's a long drop off. And that drop off will be on the cycle path. So goods will be unloaded on the cycle path the way the design is designed at the moment. And that is of real concern to our owner operator, Dave. Car doors will also open directly onto that shared path. And again, that's not unusual in a roading network situation, but it's heightened here because of the busyness of the site and the high levels of distraction in this area. We are very much concerned about the design and its design, its penetration into the site, its location adjacent to the delivery zone area, and we really do want to emphasise to council that we believe council should pause on this and look at what we believe are alternative routes for the cycleway. This is not the only route that it needs to take. There are alternatives, and we implore council to investigate them further. Cycleways are really important investments to the community, and cycleways almost for some users, not all users, but some users, it's a false sense of safety because when you're on that cycleway, it's yours to cycle, and there's an impression that you're safe or safer on the cycleway. We don't believe that's the case when you direct it through and past the Pahara store when it's really busy or we're loading or there's customers there. So that's really it in a nutshell. I don't want to repeat what Dave's already presented. Dave is very passionate about his community and his store, his livelihood, and the people around him. He wants to nurture the community. He wants the council to make a safe decision. And we really feel that the council cannot make that safe decision at the moment with the plan that's put in front of you. Thank you.
I think just so much for your time today, Stephanie. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Rebecca. Sorry, Stephanie's name's under yours.
Stephanie's a nice name.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. Really appreciate your time today. And Chris Bennett. Welcome, Chris.
Just your presentation. So I'm here for the Cycling Walkway Society. I drew the short straw because it goes with the hill or otherwise involved. We've been advocating for this for some time. Let's just fire this up. So
I need to get it out so that the members. That's what I would use. No, it's not. It's my one.
I know we're not in Paris, but look carefully at this photograph. This is the road to the Champs Elysees from the northeast today versus how it used to be. And because there's been transformation of cycleways, and they built 150 kilometers of cycleways in Paris, And they've transformed the city, transformed safety for pedestrians and cyclists, transformed businesses. And so whenever we have discussion of cycleways, there's always negatives, but on balance, there's huge positive. Next one, please. So to summarize, and leave right now if you want to say from this, but we strongly support this project. And we think this is absolutely essential. We just want to highlight a few considerations for the community board. And essentially, we have been contacted by a number of people over the last few days, and this has come up, and even in our committee, and there's no consensus as to what to do. So I'm presenting just the tone of the discussions. Next one, please. We did a strategy about 5 years ago for Golden Bay. And you can see here we have these key links for Golden Bay. And the main one is from the Heath, is from Brown's Hut and the Heafy down to Collingwood, to town, O'Hara, and out to Totarunui to connect with Great Taste Trail. So this bit right now is absolutely essential to our vision for a cycling network in Golden Bay. Next one, please. In our strategy, we identified this as one of the top 5 priorities, which we have, you can't read that. Number 1 was Wonderford Bridge, we got that one. Number 2 was the cycleway to Ring High Up, that we had it, and the storm wiped out part of it, so we're working on that one. And this is absolutely essential. So no matter what happens, we need this to go ahead. Next one, please. We see that there are 3 potential issues. The initial designs, we know this has been changed. There was no connection at Selwyn Street to the cycleway. Then there's a bunch of options open to you. This is what Jean was saying, and Dave was saying, and Rebecca or Stephanie, whatever you want to call her, was saying there are options open to you. And then the key issue, as you know, Dave, what I'd say is what's going to happen to the campground shop. Next one, please. Connections. Go. Firstly, this is really nicely done. The connection at the east end, which is to Bahar Valley Road. And this is in front of the hall. We really compliment the team on doing this. We think it's a nice design. The one point which we have is you're using some large rocks next to the edge of the road to protect the cycleway. You may want to revisit that. But what we're saying is this is what we really like about the design right now. Next one. The connection, initially, we know you're going to work on it now, but when we first saw this, there was no connection to Selwyn Street. And we think there are a couple of options open to you to consider. But this is quite important because we've had a number of near misses at Selwyn Street where people coming out of Cycleway. And it won't be easy because of lack of sight distance on the northwest corner. But essentially, you need to think this through carefully. And we know you've been working on, so thanks so much. Next one, please. Options. So we've identified through myriad of emails and comments we've received these 4 options. Next one, please. So this is the existing design. And I think it's important to know the context. I'll firstly do a caveat with a confession. I first met Robert 5 years ago at the NZTA Safe Systems Design course. So he's designed a cycleway quite in accordance with the standards. And I don't see any technical issues with it's done per se. There are always questions you can raise. The key thing about this is it's designed for 2 things. It's designed for cyclists and pedestrians. Correct, Robert?
Yep.
And that would have been in your design brief, I presume? Correct. So if you tell him design for pedestrians and cyclists, this is probably the only option you'll come up with. We've been talking about cyclists, but this also cares for pedestrians, which is quite important to understand. There are advantages. We think that this is the safest option for those using the cycleway along the corridor, and it cares for pedestrians. The cons, negative impact on the camp shop. Loss of parking, and if you're a road cyclist, it's about 1/4 of the people, they won't go on it, myself included. By the way, I live up Bay Vista Drive, so I know the shop very well. Just need food. Next one, please. Another option you'd have is to have a cycle lane on wide shoulders. And in this instance, there's 2 options to you. You could have a single lane on each side of the road, or you could have a dual cycle lane on the ocean side of the road. There's not enough room on the other side. Advantage, disadvantage with each. The pros, this approach would minimize parking disruptions, both at the shop and along the campground. The cons, no pedestrians. Again, it's a decision which you take as a community board. What is our objective here, and how do we achieve that? Then we have what Jean was asking for. Next one, please, which is go to the campground. This is what we were saying. In this instance, you would continue along Tennyson Street, cut to the campground, and this changes nothing whatsoever about the parking along the road to the shop. This is a viable option again. the advantages of this is it ties in well with the existing cycleway, doesn't affect parking. But by the way, I might be stand corrected on this, Rob can tell me. Right now, angled parking isn't legal at the campground because there's signs there which say parallel parking only. Is that not correct? That's correct, yeah. So we may have de facto, I think you said 100, whatever the number was, but right now it's not legal, it's not being enforced, but it's the signs do not allow for angled parking. Side digression. The cons of this, Jean would have to agree with as the campground owner / manager. In summertime, it's really busy in the campground, so I'm not quite sure the dynamics of going through there. And if you're going along Abel Tasman Drive, doesn't cater for you, and no road cyclists use this. I think there's option 4, which is a hybrid option. In this instance, we keep Robert's design, but rather than go in front of the shop to affect Dave, you can actually route through part of the campground on the other side. This has all the advantages and disadvantages, but that's again an option for you as well. Next one, please. Campground storage. So we all know this is the major issue here, and it's a really busy place. And I think we all know that. Next slide, please. The current design, again, I would not entirely agree with Rebecca on the safety aspects to it, in the sense
Coming up
that
to 5 minutes.
okay, there was a delay to start. I'll let you finish.
I know, I've had it there.
It's for the issue of doors, there's a 600 millimeter buffer on there, so it's quite safe. And so if you, as a safety auditor, I've been doing audits for Mike in Motueka, you'd approve this. It's actually not an unsafe design. There are issues you can't get away with the shop owners coming in contact. That's quite consistent with elsewhere in New Zealand. Next one. If you had these green paint on the road, we wouldn't have those issues. You would keep them in existing parking lots. You wouldn't have those interactions that Rebecca and Dave are concerned about. Next one. And another option entirely, one of my members, would be to have it shifted around like that. Next one as well, last slide. That would look like this next slide. So I think we must be done. Or just avoid it entirely. So to close, make a decision. Decide what your priorities are as pedestrians and cyclists, because you have a design right now which would be cleared by any road safety auditor involved in cycleways in New Zealand. I think you have checked out if you want to buy one. So it's in accordance with standards, it's in accordance with design principles. Not ideal in areas with cycleways, but consider the various implications and options. You may decide that parking is a priority, in which case you would change the approach, but don't waste time. We actually need this. And sorry, Abby, for going over.
Thanks, Chris. Oh, thank you to everyone that's spoken in our public forum today. We're going to play around with the agenda a little bit and move an item up the agenda to allow due to community interest and staff member obligations elsewhere. So Robert and Mike will move you up the agenda, and you have a report for us.
Yes, I wouldn't say report in strictest sense. I've handed out a few copies of the cyclone plan for people, the shared path plan for people to have a look at. The intention of me and Mike Benito coming today is really to give you guys an option to ask us any questions, like address any concerns that the board might have with the proposed trail. There's some good presentations on it from both the public and to the Cycle Association. Yeah, there's some good comments there which we've noted down. Some of these have already been addressed through the design stage.
Any of the board have questions, Brandon and Celia?
Okay. Celia.
Yeah, so is there any reason why the cycleway couldn't just stop at near the entrance to the camp, and then people just continue to cycle along the road and wait in the camp, and then start again past the store?
Basically, we just not have a cycle path through there. It just reduces the safety for pedestrians. because they're having to filter through vehicles. And you've got, so you'll end up with some cyclists and pedestrians moving in front of the cars, and you've got some of them behind the cars. So now we're expecting drivers to be watching both behind and front and not make a mistake. Because we've got pedestrians and cyclists moving in a sort of an uncontrolled or unexpected manner past those vehicles.
Sorry, just a question. That is the situation we have. from-
Yes, that's correct.
It
Yeah,
does seem-
essentially.
Does that seem to be a problem with what's happening outside the store and I hope with cyclists?
It's just not a particularly safe approach. Same with the intention for the entire project. There's currently people are able to get through there, but it's not safe as arrangement.
I've got a couple of questions. How many parks are outside the campground, outside, sorry, the store at the moment? Before this,
Currently,
currently, yeah.
yeah.
And so we'll get 10 out of this. So there's two extra ones. My question is, do we, you know, and I think it's important that we look at disabled people, and I'm wondering if you've considered disabled car parks in this situation.
Yes, we did consider disabled car parks, given consultation with the store and the concern with the potential reduction or change in car park layout. Opted not to put a disabled car park in, as this would restrict the use of one of the car parks to only disabled users. And any other time when a disabled user isn't using the car park, that space would be there but not available for people to use.
That's going from 8 to 10, so it's already 2 extras. But yeah,
Yes, yes. Again, it was just concerns raised about the number directly in front of the shop itself, which is why we considered that. Also, the existing parks do allow enough space, albeit occupying some of the shared parking area for somebody with a disabled or some sort of disability to be able to get access in and out of their vehicle. There is room available. We could potentially make the first car parking space in front of the store into a disabled park if that's what the board would like us to do.
just a thought I had. The other quick question is well, coming from the information centre to the Roots Bar, it's a very similar sort of situation in many ways, where you've got a shop that's got cars coming and going all the time. There's no real safety, there's no real car parks there. And that I know is really difficult for people with, for instance, mobility scooters. This will alleviate the, and so having it more clearly defined like this, obviously makes it a lot clearer for not just cyclists, but mobility scooters and pedestrians. Because I know how tricky it is for everyone getting from there. So, yeah, just it's kind of a statement of a observation, really. But yeah.
With regard to the that stretch out alongside the campground that the campground users do use as car parking.
Yes.
Has there been any thought given to how that might be mitigated for Hurricane Campground?
Yes, there has. There's basically a couple of options. There's one with the design we've proposed. Technically speaking, from a legal point of view, it has no change to the car parks in front of the campground, because it's currently illegal to angle park in front of that campground. In practice, though, the level of enforcement is low, although we did ramp that up this summer a little bit more. So vehicles are angle parking there anyway, which is one of the key generators of complaints that we get and requests for a cycle facility and pedestrian facility constructed through here. This would prevent illegal parking by creating a physical barrier. It is possible to allow for angle parking. Council would unfortunately have to reclaim the occupied land section of legal road reserve that's being occupied by the campground at the moment, which would result in a significant loss of camping spaces for the campground.
Just noted in the picture of Paris, they had the cycles going down the middle of the road. Why don't you make the whole of Tahara, I mean, just potentially a pedestrian cycle friendly zone? So have signage, have the green stripes for the cyclists. There's there's businesses on both sides of the roads, there's people living on both sides of the road. There's people crossing all the time. Going back and forward on both sides. Anyway,
You're referring to a shared, sort of a shared
Yeah,
zone, kind of like we
and-
have done in Queen Street.
have it as a sort of a pedestrian cycling priority area.
It is a possibility. It's quite a major. It's not, we have to change the speed limit through there down to 30 kilometres an hour and
Yeah.
change the facilities.
It's a few
Which is-
signs.
It's not quite so simple as that, unfortunately. It's a process that takes years to get the speed limit changed and the speed management plan. It's something that has been raised in other areas wanting to reduce speeds. Council in the past, the council is favourable to that.
Something else to remember though, if we lower the speed limit to allow on-road in lane cycling, there's still a footpath missing from the environment. But this design did look at as a shared path, provides for walking and cycling. So
but-
potentially you build the path and lower the speed limit to get cyclists off the path.
There's a fairly wide berm on either side. You could extend it, make room for pedestrians perhaps.
Yeah, that definitely could be done. And
Yeah.
it comes to timing and funding. So this project is funded by the Better Off and the tourism infrastructure funding, and there's a deadline for that money. Typically is financial year. So once that date's gone, the money's gone from the region. So it's sort of, we can take this opportunity now and use it and build some better infrastructure for pedestrians and cyclists.
In terms of the space allocation though, it is a wide berm and there is plenty of space for the parallel parking and the footpath and the cycling that's challenged by the design. So changing that to a walking only path doesn't actually, I don't see how that changes what is drawn here in the design.
Except that the proposed design is not suitable for a good portion of the cyclists. So they will still be on.
Correct, so
Going in the-
we can build the path that's shown here and then lower the speed limit and make it the only path, like footpath. That's really nice.
Be two-stage approach.
So the path
But not
physically is
under this one project, and there's not the space, but yes, you could at a later date come back and go convert the shared path to pedestrians only, and then put on the cycle lanes on. As far as the impact of parking and how restored, it would, I think.
So we're talking about cycling in lane, which is lowering the speed environment down to 30 km an hour. If we want to have a 50 km an hour environment, we'd have cycle lanes, which is adding another 1.5 meters road width, the current width, plus the width of the cycleway. So then there would be less space remaining in the corridor for parking in the current zone.
What's the speed limit for pedestrian, in-lane pedestrian?
30 or below.
10 km an hour for inlane pedestrians.
We can make the hard from that.
Yeah, but how do we achieve a 10 km an hour vehicle operating speed? Very difficult to achieve.
Struggle to get that in a car park. It's busy.
Chris. Great to have you here to be able to answer questions and make comments. I know there's no resolution here for us to be, we're not making a decision here at all. No. This is a sort of for our information, and I suppose the thing I want to acknowledge from the get-go is as a board, we asked for this stretch of path to be included in the Better Off funding, should we receive it as council as part of the Three Waters Better Off funding. So we were up for it then, in principle, and it's great to get the money, to have that money and the extra money to be able to build it. I suppose in the wider context, you know, it's been a bit of a nightmare. I go down through that stretch of road, especially in the summer, at least once a day, often twice. I'm down there most days. And I've always just had my heart in my mouth as we've had all those cars parked outside the camp. People, children, okay, and kids on tiny bikes going up and down the road. You know, it's just been an accident waiting to happen, really. And some of the bigger utes, you know, they were angled out almost to the white line on the side of the road. It's been a really significant issue, I think, in terms of safety. And I will certainly get plenty of calls and emails over the summer with people just exasperated, particularly once we brought in the parallel parking and people were still angle parking. But I certainly saw the shift when something happened, and overnight people started parallel parking there. I think the matter of the camp lease and whether the camp is supposed to better accommodate the campers' cars or not is something that's been spoken about in the past. The overflow across the road. So this has been something that's been on, you know, among conversations for a long time. And in principle, I'm really pleased that we've got the funding and something's going to be built there for walking and biking. I'm not so sure about that there's wide space either side of the road. I think when you walk up from Molly B's and angle on up there towards wherever, it's actually not very wide. And you know, the other thing we've got to remember is we've got trucks coming through from the port, and as our mussel industry just sort of exponentially expands, that's only going to increase. So it's just I think it's an area that we should really be coming up with the best solution we can. And to my question, how many alternatives have you looked at other than what's being put?
Pretty much every single one that Chris has raised.
Yeah.
And we've discarded them for various reasons. The key one I keep hearing is request to review the opposite side of the road. We did look at that. There's a total shoulder width of 2.5 metres, which means we would have to reduce the width of the sheep path, because the sheep path needs to be 2.5 metres, then there's a half metre buffer. There's quite a lot of vegetation through that, so most of that would have to be cut right back and create ongoing vegetation. But the main issue is there's 29 driveways, 4 commercial driveways and 2 side street crossings. Plus there'd be 2 crossings across Noble Tasman Drive. So the amount of conflict points that would be generated by being on that side of the road versus going in front of the front sort of significantly. So I definitely appreciate the concerns around the change in car parking. However, it is a lot safer than going on the other side of the road. And it's also standard practice as well. Whenever there's a cycle facility adjacent to parking, that we don't have cars backing out across these cycleways. We typically convert that 90-degree parking by default to parallel parking. And you'll see that as the Transport Choices projects start rolling out for consultation, they involve a significant amount of change of parking type or
in terms of the parks, you know, across the entranceway of the camp, there was like in front of the container, the electric bikes container at the moment.
Yes.
I've spoken with you about having some time limited parking there. And I know there are issues around our sort of enforcement over here and things, but I think I'm still advocating for that. I think you know, people find places to park to have their fish and chips or their walk with the dog or something. And I know at the moment, you know, I've looked at the view day, but you know, that people are parked there. I think some staff are there from across the road, maybe through the day. People pull up and go for a walk with their dog for an hour or two. But I think there's merit in those being a quicker turnaround, so that in the busy season, there is room for people to, you know, pull in, get the hokey pokey ice cream and leave again.
For sure, we agree with that, and that was offered to the Tahara schools, but rejected. They did not be time restricted parking.
Yeah, and just another question. So, if someone, is it illegal to park on the other side of the road? So, coming from the port.
You mean facing the wrong direction?
Yeah.
Yes, that is.
Yeah.
But there is room on the other side of the road for somebody to park.
And maybe finally, but so past the store where the cycle with the shed path carries on, opposite Ratanui, is there space between the path and the edge of the road for any further parking? Parallel
Yeah,
parking?
there is room.
In terms of the width.
Yeah, there's sections that are wide enough for parallel parking. We definitely keep parking in mind when designing this to try and keep the path as far off the road as possible to allow for parallel parking. So you'll see in the plans the sections that are marked with the dashed yellow line for no parking is where there's not enough width to allow vehicles.
Yeah. And it wasn't my last question, this might be. So in terms of the 100 cars angle parking, down
Yes.
along the camp fence. How many fit in there as parallel parks?
I
About?
don't know that.
Yeah,
number
it's
off the top of my head, so
yeah.
I'd work that out.
160 was, but it's only.
Yeah.
So there'd be, yeah, 100 of those.
We didn't really consider that a particular action point as it's already illegal. It's a current illegal activity
Yeah.
to Angle Park, even though they're doing it, they're being ticketed for it.
Yeah.
But that decision was made a few years ago, basically because of the same problem as you
Yeah.
discussed with the vehicles forcing pedestrians and cyclists, vulnerable cyclists, into the
I mean, my hope is, Dave, is that there isn't any, there isn't an impact on your business. I'm hoping that people will still just shoot in there either side, across the road. And, I know whenever we change things, not just a council or a board, but generally, takes us a while to sort of adjust a bit. And I think that another part of the wider context is that this is getting rolled out around the district where paths and shared paths are being put in, and they will have impacts on people in other ways. And it's difficult if it isn't a financial impact. And I appreciate the property team are in touch with Dave about that. But I've said plenty and it's quite satisfying. Thank you.
I'll see, thank you, Chris. Grant, do you have a question for Robert?
Yeah. So I was just curious about that hybrid option of going through the campground for the last bit of it. Is that, but I was struggling to understand whether that would be safe with the amount of traffic coming in and out of the campground and passing by the camp office.
It certainly raised some concerns because they have to cross over the main route through the campground, particularly around busy periods. A lot of mixed vehicle types of cars, pedestrian cyclists, campers. in that space.
One more quick question. When it gets a little bit, I know we're not talking about, no, this is about store, but if I look down, not on the piece of paper, but down on my agenda for the path a little bit further along, where people park to walk into the little grassy bit at the end,
The reserve there.
the reserve.
Yeah.
That's been there for a long time, and is there a playground there too, or is
No,
it just a piece of
Just a
grass?
grass.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, look, in the longer term, looking at the bigger picture, like what Chris was saying, I wonder if Pohara needs a little bit of an upgrade of decent parking there for people to go and, have their ice cream and eat their fish and chips and not sort of stay outside the store and go for a walk on the beach with the dog. I'm wondering if that's ever going to be an option.
Yes, I don't see why it couldn't be an option. This shared path facility would definitely make it a lot easier and safer for people leaving the store with their fish and chips and the likes to go down to the park because they now have a safe place to walk to. I guess there could be potential options to indent the shared paths further into that grass area to create a larger area for people to be parking in.
I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Robert. I'm just aware, it's getting close to 2 o'clock, so Sylvia, if we have a question from you and then.
You might just follow along with that. This place that Grant's talking about was the main place where people come and bring children.
The reserve bit.
Opposite the penguin. Yeah, so I'd just like to make that point that that's a very important place for kids and drivers to Pohara with their kids and then go on the beach, by the Summer Street or this, spun there, you would bring. Yeah.
I think it's a good point, and so the current design is to be kept within the legal road reserve corridor, so that hence why it is like that. But I guess as Grant was asking earlier, yes, there could potentially be an option to look at working with the Parks and Reserve Department to, in the future, move their bollards in a bit more and put some gravel down to push the shared path back.
As long as there's room for them to park now, there is.
Yeah, there's room for people to parallel park there.
That's what I'm really concerned
But
about.
not as many.
Not as many, correct.
We've lost
Yeah.
quite a few
Very
parents.
many people there.
There's no drawings on that, but there's 3 parts.
Where are you referring to, sorry?
On your drawing here.
Yes.
Or maybe I actually noticed it.
Sorry, Jane, we never discussed the mechanics you address them, but if you've got questions, feel free to email him. Right, so if there's no more questions from board members.
I'm just saying, if I just appreciate how available you've been to us, so some of us have had, you know, a few conversations with you and have been trailing around us a bit and wanting to get informed and understand and know what, you know, giving Chris's presentation ahead of this, and so quite a lot's gone into, you know, to understand it, so we appreciate that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Very appreciated coming over and answering our questions. Thank you. Okay, so let's move. And we'll move back into our normal agenda. So any declarations of interest? From any board members on any items on today's agenda? No. Lovely, not today, right? You're all good. All right, I'll just move into confirming the minutes from the 13th of March. Does everyone get a chance to read over these? Thank you, Jess. Anyone like to move that they are true?
I shall move.
Excellent, moved by board member Deputy Chair. Oh, sorry. Can I have a seconder, please? Oh. Go with Henry. All those in favour?
Right.
Lovely, thank you. Any late items? Okay, so we have a presentation from Tanya and actual proper Stephanie. For the Port Tarakoe structure plan. Welcome, Stephanie and Tanya.
Hi everyone, I'm the real Stephanie, not the
real
Rebecca version.
Got the other one. Sorry about it.
That was funny. And yeah. Tanya is the usual Tanya.
The normal Tanya. Look.
Lovely to see you all. Some of you know me. I'm Stephanie Stiles. I'm a planning consultant who's been working with the policy team at council for about 3 years now, helping particularly with the environment plan project, but also a whole lot of other project pieces of work. You've seen me over in the Bay for some of the work around the landscapes, outstanding landscapes project, coastal environment project, and some of those ones. Today, I'm here with Tanya as support crew to talk to you about the Port Tarakoe master plan project that we're about to kick off. So I was just going to share my screen with you. And you should be able to see that. Oh, full screen it. Can you see that okay?
One moment. Oh, there we go. Yes.
Down the line to your end. So we are just about to start a project around, well, we've been working on starting a project around Port Tarakoe for quite some time, and its initial purpose was to feed into a work stream around the coastal environment portfolio for the environment plan project, so the replacement for the resource management plan. Obviously, with the reforms underway, we're not really sure where all of it's going to end up, but at some point we're going to need to know how we best plan for and manage the area of Port Tarakoe and its surroundings. So what we've been looking to do is pull together a sort of a high-level structure plan that will help us guide various parts of work. For Tanya and myself, the key focus, of course, is in the planning world. And one of the things that we're ultimately looking at exploring is a concept of a port zone, which covers both the wet side and the dry side, the land side, in terms of managing and providing for port processes and opportunities in its wider sense. So we're looking at how both the port side and the surrounding land can support a healthy set of activities that covers all of the different aspects that make up a functioning port, but also for Port Tarakoe, obviously there's some other really, really important things that are going on in terms of recreational, ecological, cultural, social values. And so you've got a really complex space where a lot of overlapping values are exposed and potential for a lot of conflicts. As I said, the ultimate goal for Tanya and myself leads into things like a zoning and rule framework, but we're really conscious that any of these decisions or indications or actions can have implications for wider council processes, such as long-term plan decisions. So having talked to a lot of people internal to the council, talked to landowners, talked to lots of stakeholders through various different projects, we really have come back to the idea that a strategic planning process is needed. There's been identified through various different background documents and conversations that there's an underutilisation of some areas of land surrounding the port and a deficit of some key facilities, that there's really increase in pressures between the different conflicting uses. There's some really, really high values that are going on that need protection. There's climate change. Of course, it's a pretty vulnerable coastal area. And there's the element around supporting community resilience. All of this within the framework of a functioning commercial port. So what we've done is we've defined an area of the port itself and the surrounding land, in particular the Bucks land, the Port Tarakoe land, which is the ex-quarry and surrounding land, as the most immediate support land to the port itself. And that's where we're going to be focusing the energy of this project. In terms of a program, stage one is material collation. There's a lot of background material. Tanya's been wading her way through all of that and trying to pull it all together. And at this point, we're setting up the engagement process. Part of collating the material is distilling that. So we're looking to prepare and have got a partially prepared issues and options document. And that's our first port of call in terms of engaging, just to be really clear with everyone what the issues are, what the priorities are, and what the options are, both within the council planning functions, within wider council functions, and beyond those. One of the things that's held us up a wee bit is wanting to make sure that we've got the engagement process really clear and robust. And so we've been having in parallel quite a lot of conversations with MKM and the tile reps from the iwi groups. And what we're looking at doing in consultation with them is putting together an iwi working group for this. It was a concept that was raised at an MKM hui back in, gosh, might have been about November, feels like a long time ago. And so that's a work in progress. We've actually got a meeting with all of them later this week to hopefully, she says crossing her fingers, set a date for an initial working group hui and discussion and site visit, hopefully later this month. From there, we'll be looking to obviously follow a fairly traditional process of preparing draft plan documents, engaging and finalising the plan structure. So that's kind of a really high level explanation of what we're doing. At this stage, we're really just wanting to give that to you as an update, let you know what's going on, tell you that we'll be back to update you again, and hopefully there'll be opportunities for you to be involved in your various different, with your different hats on as the project rolls out over the next few months. And available to answer any questions, of course, if you've got any.
Sure we will. Chris?
The start of a 10. With the outline, the current outline of the area, how has that been determined? What's the process that's happened that's been established, please?
So primarily that's based around the land holdings. So it takes into account the land proximate to the area that's held under the Vesting Act by council. So it's the land ownership of the most adjacent private land and public spaces.
So the boundary follows those titles.
Correct.
Thank you.
Celia.
Yes. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey.
My question is about the zoning, and I'd just be interested to know a little bit more about what the quarry is currently zoned as. You said ex-quarry, and what does that mean? And what are the implications for changing from a quarry zoning, if that's what it is, to a port zone? Because my understanding is that quarries historically have had quite a lot of leeway with, you know, they've sort of been, you know, a little bit untouchable. So just, you know, what are the pathways forward for changing zoning, and if it was to become a port zone, would that be all the existing quarry?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Celia. The current situation with zoning is mixed. There are a lot of zones and bits of zones that all sort of go together to make up a jigsaw puzzle. The majority of the zones are either commercial or rural in nature. Parts of, well, the quarry is indicated through the notations on the planning maps as a working quarry. Some of the quarry is closed now and rehabilitated. Some is in progress towards rehabilitation, and some is currently operating. I understand from talking to the owners and operators that there is still material to come out of there, but that it's in its latter years of productivity. The beauty of a port zone is that it can be designed to allow for different purposes over time. So one of the things that a port zone can do is it can allocate space for different activities through a transition period. So one thing that Tanya and I have been exploring is the concept of having parts of that space that are existing or were operating quarry available for other uses under that port zone over time as that activity transitions through active quarrying, rehabilitation, and then closure. So I'm sure, will be well aware that some parts of it that have been rehabilitated are now being used for other activities, particularly around servicing the marine industry. And that has been identified as a pretty good use of that land. And the idea is that that could continue. And the port zoning is about recognising the ability of spaces to contribute to port activities, whether it be through storing buoys for marine farms or having other different servicing activities, but wrapping those up into where the appropriate spaces are. So we're certainly not looking at that whole area that's been indicated for the structure plan as being a port zone. We're looking at that, what part within that might become a port zone, and then within that zone, what types of activities, both physically, visually, and in terms of other effects, are appropriate in what areas. Does that help?
That's great, thank you.
I was just thinking about the landscapes work and the issues there around those stunning limestone bluffs and rata trees and other things, and then industrial really nearby. And were there conversations back in that landscape work around this being sort of a way of, I think I'm just trying to catch up, but this is a way of managing that so that despite the values, landscape values and natural values there, that there's still the ability for the port to function with its industrial functions and the quarry to do its thing as it's quarrying and rehabilitating and the other things that are developing. Is that, am I on the right track there?
Yep, absolutely, Chris. And we were lucky enough to be able to take the landscape experts on site up on top of the bluffs and get them to really look at which part of those values are the key parts that should not change at all. So things like, you know, no buildings and no earthworks, and which parts could have some change. The terminology the experts use is the ability to absorb change. So things like using former quarry space as storage, it has a visual effect, but it doesn't have a physical effect that can't be removed over time. So we have explored that with them, and also then taking that the next step further into the natural character values, which are very much on the outside of the bluff, the very special rata and those kind of biodiversity areas that need to be protected. So really sort of working through some of those things, ideas like potential for some buildings and things like that internal to the quarry space where they won't be visible from wider areas, but limiting buildings on the outside where they'd be seen against the face of the bluffs. So we've started exploring that kind of thing with the experts, and it would definitely be part of what we'd factor into provisions in the long term.
Thank you.
One question. Are you talking with the Department of Conservation about the memorial that's part of, which is also part of on part of Diego Tasman?
Yep.
It comes into the site notice.
Yes, we've included that block of land because the relationship of the memorial reserve space is pretty important. There've been suggestions in the past of changing the roading to put more car parking in, or putting car parking on the other side of the road. There've been suggestions of a cultural centre or a dock information centre. So we've included that block of land to allow this process to explore those kind of ideas. And yes, they're definitely in the group of people we're talking to.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you so much for your time today. That's been really good. And we look forward to hearing about the project update. Really cool. Thanks very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay. Jess, youth council and your youth council.
Yes, and all my whole youth council family. They were supposed to. They were keen 2 weeks ago, and I guess that's long.
It's a long time.
in the
2 weeks is a long
so
time.
they've forgotten. Yeah, we just wanted to come and give you an update because this year's youth council looks vastly more productive. We're quite settled in what we're doing now, and these girls, they're honestly run the council by themselves. Actually, I've stepped back completely this year because they just organise meetings willy-nilly, and they're so motivated, which is so cool. But we just wanted to let you know that this year our focus is on youth wellbeing, as per what was identified in the survey that we did last year. And our first step with that is to hold some focus groups. At the moment, we're starting at Golden Bay High School. Linda's been super accommodating for us, and we can have a focus group to be held at lunchtime with pizza, because that's sort of full of in.
All right.
To talk about what they feel that we can do, that we can bring to them. We have ideas like bringing in speakers that are relatable, because that was a complaint. Sometimes we have speakers, but they're like, you know, they're different age range or whatever. And yeah, and then we're hoping to take that to Collingwood, and then hopefully hoping to take that to homeschool and older young people, and then come up with something to do, hopefully by Youth Week. But, yeah, I think this will be an ongoing project. These guys are really keen to keep focusing on well-being. So, yeah,
Awesome.
that's what we've been up to.
Cool. Well, that's great. Thanks, Jess. It's always nice seeing you here updating.
Thank you so much. All right,
Really great.
we'll
Yeah.
get to work.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Can I just?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Would you
Before you
put any level of
Questions
interest?
now?
Would you put any level of interest in any of the group coming over to council? Or coming to the board meeting sometimes, is that?
Yeah. So
We
we,
got the kaha for that?
we have, tried. I think someone does have an interest. A few of them have had an interest in going over the hill and seeing what they like. I think it is a matter of everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
The young people that I have in the council at the moment are incredibly busy. But finding a time that aligns
Yeah,
for them as well.
Yeah.
And I think with young people as well, the gap between wanting to do something and actually doing it's quite large. So I will continue
yeah,
Yeah.
doing the good work.
And we have had the conversation before, and we've had it with Linda as well, because going over the hill requires a whole day of school, which puts them behind. They miss stuff, and like Jess said, the kids you've got on the youth council, which is the kids you want, are already committed in every other place that they can be. So
Well,
it's tricky.
yeah, I wonder whether they might like to zoom in for the first hour or something of a meeting over and maybe environment and reading or operations leaders. Anyway.
Yeah,
there's
That
options.
has been talked about as an option as well.
Cool.
And I just continue to bring it up every single time. And I will tell you, this is the closest we've ever got. We didn't quite
Somebody
get there,
nearly
but
came. Yeah.
we were close.
So we're close.
Let them know that
Next time.
Maybe should we offer them pizza?
Let them know we had a couple of students from Merch come to our council meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Oh,
This is a competition. Yeah, no.
I will let them know that. So
Thanks,
thanks,
Jess.
guys.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Katie. Okay, so that brings us to our chairs report. It's not a huge chairs report, and we've already chewed through some of it. That's nice. So first up, there's items from the April public forum. And happy to take those as read unless anyone has any comments on the paper. Yeah.
Great to have a presentation coming on 8th of May about civil defence and emergency business. It'd be great to get that out around the community, and this would be a point of our social media lovely folk over at TDC. If they can put a post out on the community page saying you can zoom into that and or come in or something.
And it'll be in the ad in the weekly that goes
Yeah.
in week before, but I think it needs to be before that.
Yeah, and would we send an email directly to Andy Clark
I
to
was just going to say, should
um,
we let him know
it's-
that it's happening?
yeah, I reckon we should.
Yeah, he knows, and he's gonna be here.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's gonna.
And I think it'll be quite important. It is a presentation, so it's not a back and forth
Yeah.
between public and staff and presenters.
Yeah.
That'll be, because Andy was wanting to know what's happening, like what's the deal, so this presentation will fill a lot of that in.
And I had and CJ will present as well, alongside Joe. Yeah, look, I thought you're going to be surprised with that. You shared. Yeah, and so she's got some really great stuff that she's been working on as well, around communities, community resilience and communities looking after community. So, and what that might look like for one community looking after each other, identifying the vulnerable people with resourcing. But anyway, so we'll put that into May. Welcoming community surveys. Just a reminder, has anyone had a chance to have a look at it? There are 68 something questions. It is quite long. The survey, the welcoming communities survey. Special projects fund. So at present, we've got $26,936 in our projects fund. Currently 8,000 of it is tagged to the Christmas decorations, which the previous board allocated for decorations on the village green. So we envision something similar to what Sundial Square have. So it can just be plopped in the space and it'll be festive. We did investigate having things across the street. Getting the TMP, getting someone to put them up, it was just
Super expensive.
too hard, too hard basket. So that's why we went with something static on the village green, and the village green commission were approached and happy for that to happen. Craig Prince is designing these up and we'll give them ready for Christmas. But we do have some money to spend and there'll be more money coming in. So we just need to decide how we would like to manage that process, whether we invite community projects, whether we come up with our own and put them out to the public. How does the board see that happening?
Yeah.
Henry,
Just a quick question. What is the special project
that,
fund?
sorry.
Not
So
layer.
the Special Projects Fund came about, what, 3-4 years ago, I think, and just so basically it's a targeted rate on Golden Bay ratepayers, and it comes into a little separate pot, and then the community can then decide what projects are the ones to spend on.
How is it?
Because it's a little bit more than the discretionary fund is, and again, the targeted rate on Golden Bay with the discretionary fund, correct me if I'm wrong, Janine, I think just comes from the general reserve, or yeah, so it's a special, it's for larger projects, special. Yeah. Right.
Did you just say that we're getting more? coming
Yes,
through?
we'll get another payment in July.
Just-
Is that
Around
correct?
about 10,000.
I believe that's round about.
So,
Right,
um,
okay.
so that would leave us about,
So roughly about 28, roughly.
you know, I look at what Waiaka do and their also their projects fund, and they put it out to the community. What projects do you think you want? And it all comes back in and they say, well, they might get 30 ideas, and then it's gone through by board, not necessarily a board meeting, and then it's kind of taking it at the ones that in the most logical and most
Yeah.
practical, and
A
then-
lot of the projects they get into can be funded through different avenues.
yeah,
So
so you have to,
suitable for the special projects funds, but
we have to make that decision of what works for us if we go by that pathway. And I think it's a pathway we haven't taken. We've been doing this for what, 3 or 4 years now, 5 years, this fund. And I'm just wondering, because we've got quite a bit left in there at the moment, we haven't used up. We're taking this money and we're not using it. And I'd like to see it used. At least, can we do something like that? I mean, we've probably all got ideas ourselves, but it'd be nice for the public with a bit of democracy to sort of have their say in, you know, no ideas too silly.
so you're wanting to invite applications?
Yeah, cool. You know, give it a time frame and then look at it.
I think whatever we put out there, we should start the writing with, this money is collected through a targeted rate. So that people know that this isn't, you know, this is, I think people need to know that.
Yep.
That they're rated, and so, we've got a responsibility to make sure that it's used, you know, it's a relatively small amount, as, you know, effectively and efficiently possible. And people will have some great ideas, and they'll have ideas that are outside of our thinking. But there may well be ideas that cost $130,000. So one thing would be managing expectations, and also seeking for people to, if they're bringing things forward, I think to have a reasonable idea of the cost of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Like to do a bit of background about getting things costed to a general sense, because you know, I saw the post from on the Facebook, council Facebook page this morning, celebrating the 2 toilet blocks that have been built, and then and they cost $120,000 each, and then 47 comments saying how ridiculous, outrageous, you're getting ripped off. Well, how can it cost that much? And I think I wrote the message down just to say, could we just provide some breakdown? So the surprise is actually how much things cost to build.
Yeah.
You know, like it's outrageous just what things cost. So people will come up with, they'll be quite small projects for that amount of
Yes,
money.
Small community projects, so, yeah. So we funded the cameras,
Yeah,
was the first round of funding,
They want more.
they do want more.
who wants more?
Police,
Want more cameras?
And up the quality of
better
something.
quality, license plate recognition, things like that.
They're not getting what they want. They didn't get what
Well, good luck.
So yes, I mean, I'm quite happy to invite, and I think Christian raised a really good point, it would need a very strong blurb. This is what we're seeking, but this is, yeah. So that would need a really. So I'm happy to invite applications from, or ideas from the community. Celia.
Yeah, I just to be clear, I mean, I think that we might be talking about having a intermediate step in there before asking for applications. We ask the community.
Well,
what
not, yeah,
it is they think this money should be spent on,
Not
rather
for the
than
check
say it
application.
should actually apply. So, yeah, not
Yeah.
applications.
ideas or projects they'd like to see.
Yeah, the type of thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, like whether it's, you know, putting something down the street. That type of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think for a moment that it should be something that people apply for. I just saw it as purely ideas that we can then say, oh, these are the things that the
Yeah.
community want. And
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
not actually, but, you know, maybe just put a clarity of financial value on what we can fund up to, perhaps.
So people don't apply to the fund for
No,
money to
just
do
giving us
their
ideas.
whatever. They say, we think as a board, you should be building this.
We say, have you got the capabilities? And they go, yep, we can do that. So how much is it going to cost and how, you know, so there's a little bit of a process, I think.
Who builds
hang on.
it?
Sorry, yeah, no, now I'm back with. Yeah, who's doing the work?
Who commissions the work? Is this a community group thing where they can get some money, get it all signed off, properly applied for, and go off and do it? Or is this something that the board commissions?
No, I think
More
it's the
picnic tables
former.
and-
I think it's the former,
Right.
but it has to be pretty squeaky.
So I think maybe first step is we have a worded statement, we invite ideas or suggestions, someone may say, well, we've got this really great project, and then we put it into the mix and talk about it then. All right, well, we can
Could
come up with
actually
some.
give people themes. We could give them themes.
Yeah, that's right, once
And
we've given them all in, we can go, right, just, yeah,
We
okay.
might get 30, there might be, you know, we look at the price list, we might get 30 and might look down and go, okay, these 10 sort of the criteria, what the order, what's the cost, which one, you know, and sort of look at it like that perhaps.
So like a broad theme, like maybe, would you want something spent on the main street? Would you like something added to a playground or something for,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
sort of
or
thing.
picnic
Just
tables
like-
at the beach, or, yeah, okay. I'll come up with some wording and send it around for input. Excellent, thank you. The action sheet. Here we go. Oh, here you are. Right, it is a little, isn't it? Okay, so Mr. Drummond, what did you agree to do? Oh, you're waiting on the suitability of the 2040 food document.
Yeah, can I just talk to that briefly?
Mhm.
So the Mohua strategy is quite a broad reaching document put together by a section of the community. And so we've already looked at how we could give the board's endorsement to its direction. And it's been agreed initially as it's a support in principle where that document was taking various things and urged it to be more inclusive of wider elements of the community. The questions come back to us and saying, well, can we be, that sounds a little bit light, can we be a little bit stronger in that? And it places the council in a situation where its reach is much broader than the council's mandate. So it's hard for us to turn around and say, recommend to you that you give anything, you know, explicit endorsement, because bits of it are within your scope and bits of it are outside. And then it goes to the point around representation. So how would you want to be reassured that it was speaking for enough of the community that you could then have confidence in it? And then there's the issue about where the council's planning framework is going. And this is the quandary that we're in at the moment, where the existing law tells us to go from what we know as the Tasman Resource Management Plan into this marvellous world of the Tasman Environment Plan. And that's, under a current law. But then the government's saying, well, actually, we might change the law. In fact, we've got proposals to do so. And if you're in the next iteration, you might have to talk or go into a slightly different planning framework where Tasman and Nelson have to put their efforts together as one, which would potentially mean a different type of run-up when you're working with another party than you would if you're, continuing to do what you were doing. So we can come back to you with a little bit more exploring about just what your role of the strategy could be. But I'm just a little bit concerned that wherever we get to might still be subject to, another series of considerations. So I know we're being a little bit slow in coming back on it, but it's actually quite a challenging piece of work. So I have asked my colleague John Ridd to give us a little bit of a dive and reach into it and talk about, pull out the bits that would be relevant to us and form a view as to which of those are plain sailing, we can get it behind, which of those might actually need a little bit more nuance. Yeah, so it's all in the mix. I haven't forgotten about you, but it is you're asking something quite, could have quite a deep ramifications.
Thank you. Jess, the meeting in Hollywood, that's ongoing. Okay. Request for approval of new street name, the Bifrost Rise. Now, I think last time applicant was in direct conversation with MP. That discussion is still ongoing. So I'm going to do some back and forth.
And we'd hope to be able to come back to the next meeting of the community board with an outcome of how those conversations have progressed.
Lovely. We'll pop that into May. Brilliant. So that brings us to the end of our action sheet. Liaison representative feedback. Now, I have mentioned, as you will see, it would be great if this could be put into writing so they can be officially included in the meeting agenda. And Celia, gold star for Celia, who put these in. Did you know? Oh, good. You're going to have to take it back. But yes, so obviously that's for the next meeting. So does everyone have any updates? Apart from Celia's. Do you want to speak to your Celia?
Yeah, just to say that Golden Bay promotions are in good heart at the moment, and it is fairly amazing that they kept the business centre going all through COVID. And I think they've got quite a talented manager in there. So it's really cool.
We'll include the next one. I'll send
yes,
a reminder out.
Yeah, no, that's right. Another issue is that the Kapahaka competition is coming to Nelson this year, and there's going to be, I don't know if council's aware of this, but there's going to be about 4,000 people coming into the district and looking for accommodation, which will be also, they'll have to come and look, they will come to Golden Bay. So that is an issue for Golden Bay promotions.
Which area?
And to Nelson.
Do you know the date?
It's August. I've got an email about it actually.
This is the sort of sequence of festivals building up to Matatini, which is going to be held in Nelson.
That's right, which is going to be huge.
It's enormous, hundreds of thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Matatini's only been in the South Island once before. It's a massive, biggest event in New Zealand. It's been for a long time.
When's that?
Can't remember.
So
Year or two out, yeah. So there's a secondary schools one that's happening before that, and then another one. So there's, I think, see, is that what that is?
So it's the secondary schools one.
Yeah.
Coming up this year.
It'll
So
be-
that'll be with their families will come. So there'll be a lot of people around. And so I'm just sort of speaking about it in the context of God made emotions, because I'm sort of trying to encourage them to, you know, get organised with accommodation and activities and stuff. But they're very appreciative of the funding from council.
Anyone else update from the liaison? Oh, no, I believe there's a coaching hall AGM.
Yes, there is.
Oh, good. Did someone did tell you?
Is it me? No.
Yeah.
I did it last time.
Oh, it's me, but they wanted one of you to be there too.
I didn't know about that.
Oh, did you have they not rang you? Okay, I'll get on to the
Paper, scissors, rocks, then,
Yeah.
I did it last time
Silly, you
Oh,
did last time, didn't you?
with about 3 people there.
Yeah. It's not a big community. It's just little. All right, I'll get on to them and see if they did want you there, because it's coming up in a week or so. So
The election of officers part.
Yeah. All right, I'll weigh you up. Okay, so that's coming up for the coaching hall. That's it for me. No, that's great.
I went to the environmental regulatory committee meeting and spoke there about the vehicles on beaches. I basically said that, you know, we're a little bit over educating people because we've done it for so long now, that if it's not done by now, then it's time to actually have some action. So I made that quite clear that Golden Bay was keen to have some action rather than just more education. That I mean, it's ongoing education, but action. So I made that point. Meeting, which I thought was probably something to bring up, and the rest of my I missed a couple of meetings because I was totally up. So I go to the museum. I don't maybe
Yeah, I went to the strategy and policy meeting last month, which was really interesting. To sort of first experience of the full council sort of how it all works. That was and yeah, it was interesting presentations. Very Richmond centric. Didn't have much to say, but yeah, that it works. Yeah. And on that, there's another meeting coming up on the 20th this month, which I was hoping to attend, but I'm away down south. So I'm just wondering if anybody else on beyond 9:30 in Richmond on the 24th. I mean, I guess you too. Anyway, but, yeah.
No, that's fine.
This isn't a liaison role. I'm chair of the Rec Park Committee, and we had a meeting the other day here as it happens, so we can zoom in with people.
So
So
we go to the mention.
yeah, so I'm aware that we don't have a board. There isn't a board. That's a mayoral appointed committee. So it's us two councillors, and then sports are appointed. So rugby, netball, football. Yeah, someone else. But so maybe a little update's helpful, so that you, yeah. So I can report that things are going pretty well. So we've had a really improved relationship between the staff that are involved in the fields and you know, the maintenance and upgrades and those things. That's going really well. And that relates into the rec centre, which is another role, but into the rec centre as well. So there's a much improved relationship and working relationship there with the sports. So Rob Coleman's doing a very good job. And we have Grant Rayburn, has Richard Hollier's role now. So Richard's still doing a few things, but retiring. So, and Richard's done a very good job in guiding us along as we started this thing, and you know, as he steps away. We talked about, we had the men's shed lease on the agenda, so that was quite a full process that Richard managed through, because they didn't get their building plans onto the agenda the time before as presented. So that meant that all the timeframes for about getting a hearing, should there be one, and public notification. So a lot of work went into sort of helping that along so they could start applying for funding. So we recommended to council that the lease be approved. There were 20 odd submissions all in favour. And up at the grandstand, the trust has got some heritage boards that are going to be put up. They were going to go in the back of the grandstand. They're pretty neat actually, and some amazing history in there going way back. But then there's an idea they go down below, where you walk along the front of it there, and Grant and I were looking at that and thought that that's, you know, good options. That's going to work out. The storage space underneath there, the sports have been approached, you'd be asked, do they want to store things in there in AMP, and we went in and had a look, and I can confidently say that it will be the flashiest recreation sports storage area in the South Island, possibly New Zealand.
It's all painted white.
It's amazing. It's alive. It's better than this, you know, like it's so fantastic storage, and those that have asked for it won't use up much of it all so far. So we've got a real great resource there. And the park, so you know, there's the rugby are looking for extra lights, and there's this really good liaison with staff about how to try and pull that off. And the standard of the football pitches was pretty rubbish for quite a while, and they're really pleased with the Reno program. Yeah, I'm pleased with what's happening up there, and the place looks pretty smashing at the moment.
Yeah.
The car park's all painted.
Yeah,
and,
that's great now.
yeah. And we were going to get word about code of compliance for the grandstanding code for the rec centre, because that's been waiting all these years. And I haven't heard, but we were to get an email fairly properly that happened. I think there was only one issue with the grandstand, which was that on one of the toilet doors, it's got men, women, and wheelchair. If you open the door, you wouldn't be able to see it from the other side. So, you know, someone has left it open, and I thought, must be the act's getting really detailed.
Righty.
I have to mean.
Oh, great. Oh, is it? Yeah. Right. So just to get a formal email about, you know, when the codes have been, you know, they've passed, would be great.
About to have a grand reopening. Excellent, thank you. Anyone else got updates from the community groups?
Just sorry, confirm the schools Kapahaka is the 29th of October to the 3rd of November. And the majority of schools, that there is a team, and then there's all their supporters. So there's a lot of people in each school, and I've just got the list of schools here, like this, I've got schools coming, and most of them don't have accommodation. So the way it works apparently is that they will say an accommodation place will take on a team or offer to actually accommodate a team. So I'll just push that along through Goldbank questions.
Thank you. And Kim's just given me a good reminder. So I mentioned it before, but on the first, I didn't mention the 1st of May. So on the 1st of May, there will be a rural conversations
From Collingwood.
in Collingwood. So some information on Michelle will be emailed out. Yep.
Set that up.
Cool. And on the 2nd of May at 1 p.m. at Onetaha Marae, we will be co-hosting the LTP engagement workshop. So that will be facilitated by, what is it, Paul, wasn't it? I called him Paul.
You start, yeah, I think it was for, it's a contractor. I didn't let the guy.
Okay, so it'll be facilitated by Paul. So sorry, that's 2nd of May at 1 p.m. And we'll start with the pōwhiri, and then we will move in from there into the workshop itself. So the facilitator and Alan will sit down with us at some stage and plan out what they might look like, and Gina as well, to ensure that everyone's engaged in that process.
That'll be important, and then liaising in with Margie.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Margie was
Laurel.
here today,
So at the
Margie,
tikanga, sort of
Margie,
Oh, great.
yeah, they
discussion
were
and
here
that
today.
Oh, good.
commission.
They did that today, so
Oh, good. Lovely.
yeah, so Gina's driving it very, very well.
I see in the list that, that I'm not sure who did this, whether it's the staff, but they've kind of assigned one person to speak for more than one organisation out of efficiency, and I'm thinking particularly about Golden Bay Promotions. So Lisa Savage is there for Golden Bay Kayaks, but she's also, oh, well, we can get her to do Golden Bay Promotions as well, and we can get her to do something else as well.
Yeah, I think that's
Whereas-
probably my list. When I just said listed down the side, so I made sure I was getting
Yeah.
everyone that I'm coordinating. The list has gone to MKeen for finalising
Right.
and for adding their names to. And then it'll come back to us.
I just think it would
Tight
be
time
better
frames.
to have somebody
I'm happy to add
embedded in Golden Bay Promotions then.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, Lisa is part of the committee.
I didn't, it wasn't Golden Bay Promotions that we were inviting, it was just
Well, I
And
thought
for-
we did have them on this.
who from
Yeah.
GB Promotions.
Well,
We
I
had to cut the list, there's a limit of
mean,
beauty.
they're pretty essential to
Yeah.
Golden Bay Promotions.
Probably their chair, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
right.
either their chair, I mean, I, their chair, and I actually think their business centre manager as well.
Again, that we've limited to 30
Yeah.
people, and that's a really, they're not moving on that list. So, and MK still have to add to it,
Right.
so that's why
So
they're
Mark Reggins is the chair of Golden Bay Promotions.
It's sort of up to them if Mark didn't want to do it or wasn't free.
Yeah,
It's
but
for
they-
them to send someone, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or do
yeah,
they
it
just
is,
go
but
Lisa?
see, what happened was that, I think that because Lisa's name was there, she, Golden Bay Promotions, well, she can speak for Golden Bay Promotions.
But you
because I
think
don't know
Mark
that
should be there?
anything's actually gone at Golden Bay Promotions.
No, it hasn't.
No, so it hasn't, so it needs to go to them.
Today was the first day we were sorted on the date.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
so everything is all from there, so I will send those through to Neil along with Grant's phone. We just have to wait and see what MP can back with, because they'll be final say.
Just through the chair, I mean, we spoke about this earlier. I'm not sure how across the board effective this is going to be. It does worry me a little bit, the lack of site democracy here. And I wonder if we can also, if there's a possibility, of setting up something at some of the further away halls or some of the halls around the bay to actually engage with people. And, you know, we've had the drop-in centres, we had the drop-ins before, which is great. I thought it was usually here. But with staff and definitely with the community board, going out to some of the halls like the Bainham Hall or the Rockville Hall, the Packawa, the places where the communities are. And I just maybe the East Hartlepool. These are the people in Mungaraka at the swamp place there. You know, these are places. These are people that probably wouldn't come all the way into town just to do a drop in. And I'm just wondering if, because we want to get more and more people involved, and I'm just wondering if this is another way of doing it. I'm open to the idea of it happening. I'm also open to the idea of us not doing that. But
I
It
think
doesn't
you would
think
need,
that step
Sorry.
happens later, doesn't it?
yeah,
So this is just getting some
This is the
community
first
leaders together to
Yeah.
start with, beginning there, and then later these other things happen where community can rock up, and that's my understanding.
yeah, this is the first step. So there is involvement for them later. They can submit, they can, and I'm not sure what Alan's plans are, whether he will have drop-ins, it wasn't quite clear on that. but yeah, there's definite opportunities, but I think the first step would be to talk to Alan. The decision of how they run this process, it doesn't come from us. It comes from Alan's team.
So years of it.
I know it's early days, and I've been having quite a few people come up to me who heard about it and aren't very happy about it. It's like, you know,
It
this
isn't,
is elite club, you know, attitude.
it's not, I mean, I don't know if it's a league, but it is an invitation thing. So there's invitations going out to specific people who are leaders in the community. As this is just one forum, very early forum, just to, you know, get some guidance, and there'll be lots and lots of others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, it's just the feedback of people's perception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noted your point about, you know, the chair or the worker, so the Arts Council as an example. And I'm inclined to think that, you know, I hope we've gone down the road of its leadership, which is chair.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
with chairs rather than, you know, it's about governance rather than necessarily than management.
It wasn't so much for what I took from Helen, sorry, come off jump to one space, but I'll give it back. It wasn't so much about the community leaders. I'm not sure where that phrase has come from. It was about people from all sorts of community groups. So it was about you young mothers, it was about your youth, it was about the groups that don't normally get feedback from. So not necessarily leaders, so it's not elitist at all.
I took leaders from Alan's conversation with us where he said, you know, we're looking for leadership in the community. So those young mums are leaders in the
Yes,
community,
yeah.
and the young people are too. So I heard them say the word leaders, and
Sorry, I mean not leaders as in a. Yeah, I think I'm just thinking of a fixated leader in my head.
yeah,
But it's the groups that they don't normally get to engage with.
Yeah,
That they're starting with.
I thought it was a different tag, but
Might clear up. I was yelling, make sure I can see through the appropriate list. Okay.
Just what I would want to know, sort of bring to the table, that what's being done for Mohua is different, and because you're set up differently. And the marae experience that you had a month or so ago has set the scene for the community board coming together with Mana Whenua Ki Mohua to provide that community interface. So really the LTP and the council's role sits in behind that. And this is really about starting the process with that community voice to the forefront. So it's quite a unique opportunity you have. You only have 2 community boards in the district. The other one is not in the same space yet with its iwi partners. So you've got the opportunity here to be a little bit of a, you know, it's a bit of a flagship and showing the way. And that's what this first coming together is, and the detail about how you then ripple that out and bring in other elements of your community and that case and all those sorts of things will follow. So it's really about a game changer in terms of the way this whole thing started. I think that's the main thing for Global to bring to table.
and
I was just going to indicate at this point, I may not be able to attend on the 2nd of May because I'll be visiting family unless I reschedule.
That's all right.
I think because the hearings around the local, what's that called, local board process with the local government, no, the
Commission,
commission,
yeah. LGC,
no,
the commissioners,
what were they called?
the commissioners. Yeah.
Local government commission,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
No, you were.
So those hearings were held at the marae, and that Mana Whenua whānau felt like that went pretty well. It was really good for the community, and it was a good process, and that's given confidence to say, all right, we'll go again with you around this, you know. So we have, you know, there has a bit of water has gone under the bridge. Yeah, great. Yeah. That's not always a negative saying, is it? Water under the
No.
bridge.
No, because you're moving.
No.
Yeah, no. Oh, well, sorry, we'll keep in touch and I'll add those names to the list for Neil to pass forward to MP. Okay, so I'm happy to move the chair report be received. May I have a seconder? Seconded by Alderman Pearson. All those in favour? Lovely. Now it is 10 to 3. We've got an update from our CEO. We've got another couple of really quick things after that. People wanting to have a quick break, have a cup of tea. refresh, give themselves 10 minutes of
Five's enough just for a pit stop.
five's enough, right? Okay, so be here in 5.
No, just you have to give me a lot of money to live here.
He does it for his house.
Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, so it's Simone.
Next up on our agenda, we have the wonderful Janine. And Janine and I had a quick catch up before, so Janine wants to speak for 5 or so minutes and then leave some space for 10 or so minutes of questions. Thank you so much, Janine.
Thank you, and I thought I'd just give a brief sort of update, and then better if I take some questions, it will be much more interactive and probably more enjoyable for you. I've come back to the role. I started 3 weeks ago, and Councillor was welcome back in October, which was lovely and really welcome back to the fold. My reflections after 3 weeks are a lot changes in a year and a lot doesn't change. You know, some issues that it would have been quite nice if they'd all been done and dusted by the time I came back. And there's some other things that are actually quite cool. We've seen some really great progress on. So like the grandstand being completed and, you know, really a lot of very good things that the council has done. I really commend Leonie and Jenna who have stepped up to take roles in my absence. And so it's lovely to meet the new community board members. Really nice to meet you. I'm hearing very good things about this community board. I just wanted to tell you that it's lovely to hear that it seems to be very high functioning and fast, which is great. And so I am just taking some of those things in. I'm really mindful that all of the things that I saw in the review and with the review for the future of local government, I was the executive director of the Secretariat supporting the panel, so wasn't part of the panel, but very actively involved in the conversation. So that was an absolute privilege. But the things that they are talking about that are challenging to the sector, all of it happened here in 12 months. So climate change impact, weather events, you know, the economic conditions, the cost of living, inflation, the challenges on councils being financially sustainable, the amount of change the sector is going through, all of that is really evident. And then I came back obviously with seeing an annual plan in consultation with a rates increase that probably nobody feels great about, but really you just get to the end of your options, don't you? Where and it's just so symptomatic of the challenges of local government at the moment. So I'm seeing all of that. Great to see the LTP early engagement activity, and that's really very good. And you know, when I think about sort of 5 areas of the review, I can see a lot of opportunities for us as a district that has very constructive, able elected members, staff team that are very supportive and very community focused. And I know that, you know, sometimes we get things wrong, but we just have to own that and continue to try to get things right. Noting that somebody's right for one person is not necessarily right for another. So the 5 areas, you know, if we think about those, they are, and these are the shifts that the local government review has talked about. These are the 5 shifts that they were saying, really, if these shifts are not made, then local government will not make the traction that it needs to in the future. And it will continue to be further eroded and undermined. So they are partnership with iwi Haka Māori. Democracy, both democracy in terms of how you draw elected members, how you have diversity and support of elected members, but also democracy in terms of that, how you draw the community and they become much more part of decision making. So they're deliberative and participative democracy. Funding and finance rates as the vehicle is just coming to the end of its useful life, and there has to be other options. Which probably feeds quite well into one of the other shifts, which is the central government local government relationship, how there needs to be a change in that relationship, there needs to be a much greater level of partnership and collaboration, and most likely some changes in funding arrangements. And then the last one, which is not the least by any means, it is sort of underpins everything in the review, and it's about well-being and being at the centre of everything we do. And for councils, that needs to think about how you use your assets, how you actually are always asking yourself, the business of council, the facilities of the council, the functions, the events, how do you look at those all the time to say how to make the best value for your community, be really inclusive of the community, and exactly do that. So I'm really, that's a very rushed view. I do the reviews. Well, the review will be concluded in June. It's the 19th of June, I think. The final report. They issued a interim or a draft report in October last year, and where they signalled a lot of what they were hearing and what they were thinking about. The final, that was 267 pages. If anybody had to Google to get through all of that, but the final report will be short and it will be to the point. I'm quite confident about that. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that. So that I think it will give the sector a bit of a platform to build from. Noting that a review is just if the government decided to do nothing with it, then it's just a review. But I think, to be honest, I think any new government do recognise that one, the important and critical role of local government to face the challenges coming at us, and the fact that there are going to be changes. So that's a very quick. Hope that was a 5-minute summary, and I've really got any questions.
I did note that Prime Minister Ardern at the last LGNZ conference said the sector had sought the review, and that at that time that she said the government won't take it on unless the sector says that's what we want. So interesting to see if Prime Minister Hipkins has the same view.
Yes,
about that.
and it was something that they obviously we all noticed at the LGNZ as well. And I think if you consider the timing of that and the I'll call it the fallout of 3 Waters, I think the government has had to take a look and say, imposing this sort of change without buy-in sector doesn't go that well, maybe. So I think it was a reflection of change. I think everybody, with very few exceptions, everybody would agree change is necessary, but it does have to be done. And this is one of those things about the central government, local government. It just has to be improved, remarkably improved.
I'm wondering where community boards going to fit into the future, and maybe you can't say too much about that. You don't maybe not know about that, but how do you see that in the future?
The one thing I would say that I can say with absolute confidence is that, and if the panel here, they would say this, and I've seen them say it in many public settings, so I don't think I've breached any of their confidentiality. They absolutely see the local state local government. And so boosting that, strengthening it, being more inclusive of communities, empowering communities. So I could answer that by saying this isn't a review into whether local government exists, it's more into how do you strengthen the future. The community board, you may be aware, they did submit LGNZ community board, and so the voice is being heard.
I'm just after that time with the local government commissioners, I just smelt this kind of maybe everyone's going to have local boards in the future and make it, but that's taking it further away from people. So I had that little bit of that's why I asked the question, because it would be a shame to end up with local boards and lose a bit of that more community board sort of grassroots.
Yeah, I hope you're okay.
Yeah, no, just it's much easier to have a conversation than that.
again, at the LGNZ, you might have noticed the panel that they presented, they said the status quo structure is not something that's option. And that does not mean that they are saying amalgamation. They are just saying the way that the sector works, the demands on the sector, the change coming at them, the relationship with local government, how local government does actually work with central government, that they were saying that there needs to be some consideration around structure when it comes to how local government works. And I can only, and they're still working through that, but I can only really reinforce that that's not about taking the local voice out. So, and they would be very strong on that. But you might see a real drive towards shared services. You might see you think about you configure the relationship between central and local government. The central government would say they have far too many councils to do, and councils would say we have far too many government departments to talk to. So there are some real changes needed to make that a really true partnership.
And we have a representation review coming up, so that relates to whether we as a district decide to have community boards or not. What do you say something about that?
So the representation review is something that 6 years, and we do that according to the parameters that we work with the representation review. That will include whether that consideration will also feature a Māori board, and so that's a standard thing that every council must go through. I don't believe there's any appetite to do away with community boards. It would be something. Community comment on that certainly would be something that that would be done and without significant community consultation. So
It has to be second first, doesn't apply to community. They lost their appetite. Major process won't do it.
I'm just interesting that you raise, well, would community boards say, well, actually there's a decision that sits with council, in the district about community boards too. So while that's going on at the national level, we have our representation review coming up, and whether we have wards even or all of that just all.
Does that how many councillors per ward as well? Is that where that falls into?
Yes, we're all within quite tight parameters. And for Golden Bay Community Board, my understanding is we've in the past thought sufficient to get the number of tablets in a related here, community board members here. It's a little bit outside the parameters, but we've never had issue from my understanding to get that by the
And I think we as two councillors are overrepresented.
Yeah.
We're 1.6.
I'm sorry.
We're 1.6, I think. 1.7. We've got 2.
Round up.
Yeah, we round up.
Yeah, so that is cool.
What you said, is sort of what I heard when I went over to an LGNZ training session in Nelson, I think, Henry, and that was last year, I think. And it was the informal discussions afterwards as well about the whole representation of the community and enabling them to become a representative, to get on the community and all that, because they've got their own responsibilities, obligations, like I'm talking about, full-time work. That, they come into a 1 o'clock community board meeting and all that kind of thing. And even I'm going to say remuneration for the time they put in, which effectively could be for councillors a full-time job.
And that features definitely in the report. There's a combination of, as I say, sort of how do you strengthen the diversity at the table? So, making sure that you are able to provide that young people, that people with parenting responsibilities, people with disabilities, that they're all able to be represent their community and be supported to do that. So there is definitely a drive for that. And then the conditions that elected members work under and things like KiwiSaver councillors, which are not available, but it's available for I understand CP. So you just listen. Yes, that's my understanding. I hope I'm not right. I'll just qualify that. I hope I'm not wrong. I'll just qualify that. So I'm pretty sure that's the case. So there's things like that that are they're not putting the best conditions around people to encourage them to be elected. And I have maintained, I'll say it on the record, a unitary councils and elected members, they have such a bigger workload because they're spanning both regional and Te Lehmuch. So it is something that really needs to be. I mean, in my experience, most people, I'm sure I can say this with this table, come to this role because it's actually the desire to support and feel they take the community that drive them to it. But there's the realities of a workload while you're trying to manage income and other income. All of those, they are real.
You know, it would just be interesting to know, you know, what the thoughts and feelings are from other councils around the Motu, you know, because we've got our own identity, you know, about ourselves, but you know, it would be interesting to know whether or not other councils think the same as we do.
I think my comment actually on that, one of the luxuries I got, those of you who don't know me, I did not come from a local government background in the CEO role, and so my only experience with local government firsthand is through council. So this was a wonderful opportunity for me to hear from other councils, see the issues that exist across the sector, and I think I can safely say that the issues that I had thought were maybe somewhat isolated to Tasman District Council are not at all. We may have some more pointy end issues, a large infrastructure project in the region and the impacts of working through that. You know, but that's been felt by other councils too, that they consider large infrastructure projects as well. And that whole affordability, the expectations of the community, the growing expectations, the you know, the potential you know, the COVID and all of that's introduced, the disengagement of some, you know, all of these challenges, they're being felt everywhere. And of course, we have some that are emphasised for us and some that are felt in other councils that are not so strong. So it was great. It was very validating.
So we're actually by average, would you say? Sort of, you know,
I think
this is a thumbnail.
I mean, you always feel a little bit closer to your own patch, don't you? I think there's a lot of advantages we have for the team. You know, as we go through economic challenges and things like that, we may have some advantages in that space. We obviously live in a beautiful Rohi. I mean, we have so much going for us as a district. We have as I say, a high functioning council and elected members of community boards. We have a great relationship. I'm just going to put that out there. I think the staff relationship with the elected members is really, I think, special, something to be really preserved. So I'm a bit of a Pollyanna by nature, I have to say. So I tend to sort of look for the things that feel really that motivate to keep going. And I do see loads of opportunities when you're working with that phase. Obviously, it's the elected members will make the decisions for the community, but if we can provide them with much support and an organisation that, you know, that's enabling for the sorts of changes our elected members and our people see, then that's a great thing.
That's just one more.
Yeah.
Have you come back to TDC and to us? You must have come back and just bursting with ideas and things that could be implemented. And you would have been, I've been researching around the world, looking at Indigenous models around the world, all sorts of models. And you can't sort of, you know, you can't pin yourself on something here, but I imagine that you come back quite creative maybe, or just a bit out of the box of how we've been going about things generally.
Yes, definitely. While I was away, knowing that I was running for 12 months and not a day more, I knew that I was coming back to my role, but I was leaving the view that was complete, and that was I made a commitment that I would be back. And so I started to sort of put my mind to, you know, getting all of this, you know, privilege of being exposed to this material. What's that mean for me when I go back to my role? And it certainly is that I'm thinking about how can I work with the team to do something. I think, to be honest, there's always been at the front of my agenda from joining Edmund District Council is position. So just get out, you know, do what we need to do to support our communities, support our council and our staff through the changes that we, some of which we might choose to make ourselves. And I can see good changes that have happened. For example, Emmy on the committee. So pleased to see that. So some of that change will be self-driven. It's the really great stuff. And then some of it's forced upon us. And when that is the case, working out how best position the council faced with that is the challenge, and that's what I look forward to. So I think there's a lot we can do. I'm really pleased to see the continued growth of the relationship with Manawinu across our I'm really pleased to see that. I will put it out there that I had a conversation with the new Nelson City Council chief executive this morning to say, hey, we need to be really joined up and collaborating. He was very enthusiastic about it. That we really need to say how can our organisation work more collaboratively so we can build a best value for our ratepayers. And then, you know, we've got so much happening in the climate change space and thinking about things like how you involve your community in decision making, things like citizen juries. There are loads of opportunities in those spaces. So it's exciting. My challenge, I think Kim will be sitting there thinking, what are you going to do to us? But my challenge is to try to keep that at the forefront of my mind as I get back into a job that is very busy and lots going on, and nothing stops in 12 months. You just have to hit the ground running. So I'm really looking forward to working with my executive team. They're great. You know, Kim and John and the team, they're fitting in really well. I think we're in a very strong position.
Nice response. Thank you.
Anyone have any final questions for Janine? Lovely, thank you so much, Janine. It's been lovely having you here and having you back.
Thank you.
So we will move into the council policy for the community board's discretionary fund criteria, which is page 23. If you've got a paper, old school copy like me. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Right. I'll move. Sorry, Jess. Move that we accept Jane's verbal report to the board. May I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Butler. All those in favour? Lovely, thank you. So has everybody had a chance to read over the council policy that we are recommending to the council for adoption? Robert? You made a noise, did not like it.
No, I read over the policy and I was like, okay, a lot of it fits in with what we're talking about. I mean, it says funds will be allocated through a monthly funding round, which we're going to keep doing. But I was curious about how do we gauge this is clause 4.1. It says it must contribute to the Tasman District Council community outcomes as set in the council's 10-year plan. And I guess it doesn't mean when we're assessing an application, we have to think about the council's 10-year plan and whether it contributes.
Yes, surely.
Jess, part of the policy.
The community outcomes.
Yeah.
LTP.
Yes.
Well, maybe what maybe we could just say what the outcomes.
That's a really good idea. You can make it into it. You say, what outcome do you meet?
I'm happy to look those up, but I think there's a number of them, but they're very broad. So,
Yes.
and they're very focused on community well-being.
Yes,
and,
I think be able to
prospering, thriving.
you
communities.
package them into a slot.
Yes, so I'd be very surprised if found any that didn't fit.
Yes, it might really be.
There you go.
So if we
So you-
discretionary, but
So you say there has to be just specific with the. Is that what you're asking for?
it just says they must contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think most projects would, all, in
Okay.
fact, all, I'll sit on the limb with Janine and say all projects would.
Yeah.
I could just add, it might be part of my role to suggest if you were floating outside of that frame. But I might bring it to your attention.
And we'll give you that job.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
pretty much sort of that. I'm comfortable with that.
I just
Yeah,
raised
no,
it because it was
absolutely.
a criteria.
Absolutely, it's good.
And then I noted on clause 6.4. It says they should provide appropriate financial statements.
Did we not do that right? The statement of financial position, balance sheet, statement of profit and loss, was that not what we worded up last time?
No, we came in a bit lighter. We indicated a summary of their financial
We did.
position and a project budget.
You
Project
jotted
budget.
it down as we said it.
Did jot it down,
Have you
obviously.
got your book?
And I typed what was written down and. sent it off.
It does
What do
say.
we see?
Lovely thing.
All it is, I'm just picking up discrepancies between our document that we discussed last month and this one. That's what I was picking up. I think,
I noticed that as well. 'Cause
We
were
said a
concerned
summary of
about
their
the
financial
version.
position.
yeah,
So, all that's happened is that they haven't taken out the financial statements because they've still got project information, including project budget and the summary of overall financial position. So they just haven't taken out the statement of.
That was the wording of that. Just needs to be changed.
Just take out the EG. Would that do it, Robert? If we just took out the EG, so it will read, applicants should provide appropriate financial statements, financial information, financial
Yeah.
information, including a project budget and a summary of overall financial position.
yeah,
Okay, so it's just taking that EG.
yeah.
So if we accept it, we'll just add in that little addendum. Cool. Anything else?
That's all.
No, that's good. Good picking up. I didn't even see that, but
Perhaps a motion that allowed you to suggest that change and then take on board the rest.
why not? Yeah,
Modification of it.
Yeah.
You're not tied into it.
try to do it. Yeah.
Get that outcome.
Good suggestion. Thank you.
And my quick question is, haven't we got application forms online? It says you can pick up the application forms from, oh no, it does say service.
You do both.
I have brought up the community outcomes. I don't know if there's any interest in that. So we're trusting that they're broad enough and I brought them up in the LTP. The
Oh, yeah.
community outcomes that Robert referred to.
I think so. Comfortable that they're broad enough to encompass many projects.
You don't need a refresher.
Kim kindly volunteered to direct us.
Yeah,
Should he think it will fall outside for further investigation.
they're quite broad. A unique natural environment is healthy, protected and sustainably managed. Infrastructure is efficient, resilient. Our urban and rural environments are people friendly, well planned, accessible and sustainably managed. Things like that. It's hard to imagine somebody applying. And it's
Fit outside.
filling us, yeah.
And you will be, they're up for grabs again, of course, for the new process, so you've got an opportunity. We appreciate it.
I feel I just brought it up more, just being mindful of that
Yeah.
as a condition and just that we're aware of it.
Right, anything else?
We got a resolution.
So the resolution, Kim, would be that we received the community board discretionary fund policy report and recommends the draft council policy. And how do we word that, but Kim, with relation to 6.4? To change that if it's not going to be.
Yeah, with amendments to clause 6.4. And you delegate the fine tuning of that to the chair. Because otherwise you're going to, might be a reason wording we've come up with.
Didn't fit
Might not
mine.
be exactly precise for
Yeah.
it, because he might be looking at some other obligation.
Okay.
So if we say that subject to that change, that it's.
Sorry, I've got it up on the board there. It's great, it's with amendment.
Or 6.4. Do we need to say what the amendment is, Kim?
To the you want to say something to the satisfaction of yeah.
Rather be specific.
Well, the problem is if you go for a particular change and there's something else that stops
We
it
have to
being
come back
precise
and
and
we'll
that-
hold that then.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm just thinking that you
Yeah.
said today what you want. And the chair's not going
So,
to approve something that's not in line with that.
So,
you're delegating it back to getting it clear, just one person.
Appreciate.
Well, I mean, I'll follow.
I'm wondering, yeah, I'm wondering why, yeah,
Yes.
because I'm so sure we worded it correctly when we sent it through. Anyway, so there might be a reason.
Yeah,
If
well,
we
I
can-
just don't know why
Yeah.
it's back in like that.
just so that I have clarity while I'm doing the minutes.
Yes.
The reason to amend it is to make it slightly more open, like to not require a full financial
Yeah.
statement, but it's to.
Make it a
Position.
bit easier.
Yeah.
Because
Because we
it was
did the
information that we
discussion.
didn't think we needed to have,
Mm.
because it was asking for a heck of a lot.
For $500,
Yeah,
$700.
it was like over the top.
Okay, require.
500 for us. No, it's 500 for us.
It did say so. Those are the ones we've got.
We've got 500.
700 is more
Yeah, if you just scroll down a little further.
specific criteria for Golden Bay.
Well, it's going back.
I'm just looking at the minutes from last time. It says applicants are to provide appropriate financial information, including project budget and
Yeah.
summary of.
So we
overall.
did, so what
Yeah.
Mike, so we did do
Yeah.
it right, but what Mike's done is changed it because
Yeah.
it might be,
Yeah,
or he might just have cut and
Yeah.
pasted from what and not checked. So we'll go back and we'll
yes,
just say,
that's fine.
This is under the Golden Bay specific criteria.
yes,
That's right.
got
Yeah,
it.
So. To reflect the motion passed at the 13th March meeting.
Yeah, good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Good score.
yeah.
Nice, like it. That makes us
Do we need to get approved?
Yeah, well, we'll check him, we'll check with him and then, yeah.
Because he'll take it through to council.
Open category.
So there might be a reason, good. That's a good point. Okay.
Are we happy with that?
Oh,
resolution?
Yeah, I'm very happy to move that. If someone wants to second it, as a resolution. Deputy Chair, no, all those in favour? Aye. Lovely. Thank you. And that brings us to our financial reports. Happy to take that as read if no one's got any questions. Oh,
Looks like our financial advisor.
that's good, that's why we have.
Well, I'm just trying to unpack this a little bit. So I know we've got a targeted rate.
Yeah.
That goes to the Golden Bay Community Board.
Special projects. Fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there specific targeted rates for each one of those funds? Is the Golden Bay Community Board, the discretionary fund and the special projects, was it all combined in one rate?
The general rate that runs right across the region.
Yeah.
Which is what we just talked about here, is discretionary funding. The one we covered earlier was a targeted rate. Collecting it from Golden Bay residents.
Yeah.
Two different funds.
So what is the community board? Because I was just curious about the community board having a surplus itself, and I'm like, I guess I'm asking, is there discretion for the community board to be, I'm just going to say, moving from the general fund to the discretionary fund if we are not using all the funding that we get?
So you want to move some special
Yeah.
projects fund?
Yeah, I'm just
Possibly.
asking.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because it was set up for larger scale projects in the community. But it could be an option that you can put to the community, it's their money, so
Yeah.
it would need to be. I mean, there is that option.
Yeah, I was focused more on the discretionary fund.
Yeah.
In the long-term plan, there's some sort of cut programs, aren't they, that we can actually change the way that rates. You know, that would be an option to actually change that if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I think that there's quite a few things around financial strategy, how you do it, that requires consultation, targeted rate and my job to do this part better than me, but any targeted rate has a very robust process around it. To obtain the targeted rate, they would have to go through. We want to change that.
Yeah, we absolutely did. Yeah, we absolutely did.
I guess it was for me, it was looking at the activity balance,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is accumulating. And I was sitting there thinking, for what purpose?
The board may not have been doing a good job at letting people know
Yes,
about the
yeah.
fund and saying.
Yep.
Here's some cash.
Money, so we spent the first one on the cameras. So there was a community consultation around that as well, that was quite, yeah, it was a good process though.
Yeah.
But we haven't done another. We didn't put, at the stage the board decided to just go ahead. And choose that as a project. So this will be the first time we've gone out publicly and said, how would you like money to be?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's the special projects fund. But then I
Special
was
projects fund.
yeah, the activity, they call it the activity balance.
So what, oh, good.
Yeah, what is that? Is that for us to do workshops?
What's this for?
Next one up from the discretionary fund.
The reimbursement. So you're looking up or down?
Above discretionary fund.
Activity balance.
Votes to the account for the date.
In your budget? Oh, activity balance.
Yeah.
It's just it's bank account activity, isn't it? It's not a fund. No. Isn't it just the activity on the account? Yeah, that's not an actual fund. Is it?
Well, for me, it's not about activities fund, but it's just accumulating. So that's what I was looking at.
Sean Robert?
Oh, well, I'm just looking at the activity balance,
Over here.
81,000. So this one here.
Yeah.
Saving around 15K.
Yeah.
It started with 64. And you still got 15 youth from that, which is actually.
What is that?
That's your, that's what.
So that's everything.
Everything.
Everything
Yeah.
we've got,
Oh, I
your
see.
training, your
Yeah.
reimbursements, your travel, your.
Yeah.
So you've still got
Yeah,
what
it's
you
just
carried
the-
over from
it's
one
just
to
the
another.
everything
from
up to.
previous year. Plus you've got 15K, this year's allocation still remaining.
Right.
Got 81K, so.
No. Would you share that more?
No,
widely?
I wonder if, so, I mean, it does count for all of the operations.
Yes.
And I wonder if it's more useful for us to ask Mike to join the meeting. Same now this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the whole community board. It might just, rather than us winging it, which, you know, I'm pretty comfortable with that.
And assuming, you think, yeah, which is never ideal.
Why not? And
Yeah.
that is an opportunity for you to put questions like,
Yeah.
what if we did want to transfer it?
Yeah.
Mike lives and breathes this stuff.
Yeah.
This thing in Robert's thing, so I mean, that'll be really, be a great meeting, I mean. Yeah, we could just delegate to Ron, you know, he'd have
Yeah.
to please.
Yeah.
All right,
I'll tell you what, to make the change. to this way.
and then just, oh.
That's your line.
It was our recommendation and Mark stole it.
Yeah,
Right.
that's good. One minute.
People were tomorrow.
Have they actually done that?
Yeah, like in here, that's made the change.
We just need to accept the report, don't we?
Oh, is that not right?
Yeah, they've done it for Martin, not for us, so the next stuff,
Put it around the wrong
yeah,
way.
that might be right.
That's what's.
Ah, okay. So we just need to, we just need to accept the financial report and, I've added to my list to talk to Mike about coming in. Cool. So would anyone like to move, we accept the report? Moved by councillor
Robert's not
Parker.
gonna move. I love it.
No, you've not anything to do with that. Seconded by board member Dixon. All those in favour? Aye. Aye, excellent. And that brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you very, very much, everybody. I'll just pass to Chris for closing public hearing.
Sure. I was gonna, I had a different one here, but I haven't, I've just lost it.
Oh. We've got time to go. That's something in my.
I have some on my mind, but I thought it might be. Say something, yeah. I cut a clear tato. Kua mutu a mātou mahi mō tēnei wā, manaki tia mātou o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau katoa, I o ki te aorangi, e tau mai ana. Our work here has finished, looking after ourselves, all our friends and family, pieces in the universe, and hopefully sun has settled upon us.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yes, for coming over, Jenny. Lovely to have you.
Cheers,
Thank you, Chris,
Abby.
for very nicely summarising and encapsulating the Pohara cycleway and saying it wasn't a